disappointment in the game of life.
So, what is the very worst Spielberg movie? Ready Player One? No. Jurassic Park: The Lost World? Try again. Oh, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? Worse than that! Allow me to introduce you guys to a Spielberg film no one talks about. His least viewed feature-length film on Letterboxd, in fact. One that was so bad and so much harder to get through than anything I've ever watched for one of these ranking videos, that I committed what some of you might consider to be a cardinal movie-watching sin. 1941 is an infamously bad Spielberg movie that is somehow better than this one I have ranked in the bottom slot on this list. Say hello to the BFG, since he's really friendly and he likes it when people say hello to him. Also, his movie is later in the list. Okay, I've stalled for long enough. It's time to tell you what the worst Spielberg movie is. But first, let me set the scene. Friday, August 25th. I wake up at 11 a.m., eat some delicious pancakes for breakfast, and tell myself, okay, before I put the finishing touches on my Puss in Boots: The Last Wish analysis, why don't I watch another Spielberg movie for the ranking? I browse the list of movies I haven't yet watched, and I innocently decide to knock out a movie I don't know anything about. But it's only 2 hours apparently, so I figure, why not? This should be fine. I go to YouTube, and I rent a digital copy of Always. And that's how I ruined my entire day. I cannot stress enough how horrible the experience of watching this movie is. See, there's movies I hate more. At least 5 of the Sony ranking movies are worse. However, those movies weren't 2 hours with the most banal characters acting out the most insane premise with the most baffling execution imaginable. Wow, you might be thinking, the way you describe this, it sounds like a hilariously bad movie for the ages. No, it's not. Don't be fooled into watching this fucking monstrosity. It somehow manages to take a premise that sounds insane and makes it incredibly dull and lifeless. Somehow, the movie becomes more boring after its ridiculous twist. Which, hey, why don't we talk about it? So Richard Dreyfuss plays a pilot and puts out fires. He's in love with Holly Hunter and they have no chemistry. His friend is John Goodman, who tries his best to make this character memorable and likable. He doesn't really succeed. Anyway, Elastigirl is like, come on, Richard Dreyfuss, you gotta retire and hang up the plane and just stop. So the guy from Jaws is like, okay, sweetie, I'm just gonna do this one last job and then I'll go retire and teach people how to plane. They even have a cute little goodbye scene where she stops him from taking off and they kiss. How nice. Do you think he's going to die? Is it too subtle for you to realize that he's about to die on this mission? How much more fucking obvious can we make it that he's about to die? Oh, look at that, he's dead. So from this point on, the movie becomes a more mature and interesting story about grief and coping with it. We get to see Holly Hunter and John Goodman going through the stages of it, and eventually learning to accept that this guy they cared so much about is gone. Well, that sounds like a nice movie, I guess. Why didn't it turn out so good? Oh, because I fucking lied. That's not what the movie is about. There are glimpses of these characters dealing with grief, but they're not the focus. The focus is on the guy who died, because now he gets to come back as a ghost and manipulate the thoughts and actions of this new pilot as a spirit guide. He learns all this from Audrey Hepburn as she gives him a haircut in the middle of this scorched forest. And he's so casual about all this. Oh, yep, I'm dead. Oh well, sure, I'll be a spirit guide, why not? I'm sorry, what? Who the f*** reacts to this information so casually? From there, the rest of the movie is about this ghost guy watching himself get cucked as the new pilot he's supposed to guide falls in love with his old girlfriend. This is maybe the dumbest plot to a movie of all time, and the worst part is that it's all played completely serious. I couldn't believe what I was watching. How is this a real movie directed by Steven Spielberg? This is like a bad concept by M. Night Shyamalan standards. I'd rather be watching the movie about the beach that makes you old. At least that's probably a little bit funny and not the most boring thing I've ever seen in my life. Seriously, the movie was dull before, but it somehow gets more boring once it goes in this insane direction. I couldn't stand it. I felt like I was losing my mind as the ghost guy said some variation of, "That's my girl," for the 20th fucking time. Once I hit the hour mark, I knew I legitimately couldn't go on like this. this. I needed a palate cleanser after enduring only the first half of this movie. So I did something I've never done before when working on any of these ranking videos. I paused the movie I was watching and I threw on a completely different one. I figured The Adventures of Tintin looked fun, and yeah, I got more enjoyment out of the opening credits animation than I did the entire first hour of Always. What a great movie to wake me up out of my damn coma. The only bad thing was, as soon as it was over, I remembered, oh yeah, I still have an hour of this shit to go. So I watched the second hour and, I don't know, it was still bad, but the fire effects were cool. There was one good scene in a vacuum where the guy finally accepts that his girl has to move on, and he tells her all the things he wanted to tell her when he was alive. Too bad the movie surrounding this scene was so shitty, huh? Otherwise, I might have actually felt something. And then that's it. It was a whole lot of fucking nothing that added no value to my life whatsoever. Again, don't watch it out of morbid curiosity to see how bad it is, because its biggest crime is that it's painfully boring. I guess the fact that it manages to be so boring while having this insane of a premise is a feat in and of itself. But again, take my word for it, you don't need to watch this shitty ass, creepy as hell, big budget Hallmark movie. How did this come out the same year as Last Crusade? What kind of Shrek 2 Shark Tale double feature shit is this? The good news is, this movie has no fans, so no one will get mad at me for this placement. What a relief. I'll always remember to never watch this movie again.